My name is Freyaz Shroff. I have an M.B.A. in International Business and Marketing from the United States of America. I have helped build multi-million-dollar businesses in the corporate sector for more than a decade. But that is not why I am on this stage today. Fate brought me to India. Family values kept me in India. But it was destiny that propelled me, a businesswoman, into becoming a volunteer teacher at a public school. Let me paint a picture for you. I remember one particularly hot afternoon walking into class and handing a student a bag of snacks, requesting her to pass them around as I turned to the blackboard and began to write, only to be met by quiet movement and rushed whispers. When I turned around, I saw my students had their hands outside the classroom window towards their friends on the school's makeshift playground. And I asked, "What's happening?" One of the boys at the back courageously said, "Ma'am, हमारे दोस्त ने भी नहीं खाया है, उन लोग को भी भूख लगी है, हम शेयर कर रहे थे." It took everything I had not to burst into tears. From the next day, we had snacks for everyone inside and outside the classroom. That was 11 years ago, when my heart ached, and it has never stopped since. I channeled this ache into a tangible, replicable, and sustainable change. This is what I am here to talk to you about today. I am part of the rich India. In our classrooms, we have a maximum of 40 students. We are educated in English. We don't only have access to mainstream education, but also opportunities to explore other options of our interest. We are taught group projects. We are taught to work and lead in teams. We have access to people who give us jobs and internships. We can attend college in India or overseas. In short, we are not just being prepared to become entrepreneurs and leaders. We are also being provided the network that will help propel us into these positions. Then there is the poor India. This is where my kids, my students come from. They have 60 students in each classroom. They are taught all subjects in a local language. English is only a subject taught as part of their curriculum. They are molded to work individually, follow instructions, and keep their heads down. They are taught not to ask questions. They are taught by parents and society alike to be submissive and overly grateful, even if the thing they are grateful for is a school-issued textbook. They are being prepared to become daily wage earners or low to mid-level employees and are at the mercy of their good fortune or the referrals they may or may not receive by their parents' employers. Most of their parents are daily wage earners or work as house help and drivers in the homes of the affluent. The irony here is they wake up early and go to work to dress someone else's child for school, feed someone else's child breakfast, pack someone else's child's lunch, or drive someone else's child to school, while their children have to wake themselves up, dress themselves for school, skip breakfast, possibly not be able to pack lunch, especially if they are too young to light the stove and walk themselves to school. They live in homes roughly the size of a public parking space in America. Their homes are 9 feet by 6 feet. They have no running water in their homes, and water is released at a set time each day. In this time, they must fill all the water they need for cooking, cleaning, bathing, and drinking. Most of their homes don't have refrigerators. What this means is food has to be bought and cooked fresh every single day. This is what a typical plate of food looks like for dinner. Please imagine for a second a child who is woken up at 5:30 a.m., walked to and from the washroom to get ready for school, has barely eaten a good dinner, left home on an empty stomach, and walked to school another 15 minutes, arriving sweaty and hungry, how well do you think that child will be able to focus in school? The school I volunteered at had no peeling paint on the walls. The corridors were clean, the students were well groomed, and the midday meal program was well run. The principal took every opportunity he could get from the business and non-profit communities to level up his students. So what's the problem then, you might ask? Well, let me make it clear. I have seen my students come to school hungry. Many times, they have a desire to learn but an inability to focus. They misbehaved because they wanted attention, and in overpacked classrooms, misbehaving was the only way to get attention. I used to teach anywhere I found room. I would walk into a packed classroom without a teacher and teach. I would sit out on the hallway floor and teach. I taught before school. I taught after school. I taught during school. I would invite them to my home and I would invite them to my office and teach. The ones who wanted to learn would come. I primarily taught them English because in school they were only taught in the local language. But to compete effectively in college, they would need English. Their grasp of the language was extremely weak. Their parents and friends don't speak English, so the only exposure they had to the language was while they were in school. I was the teacher who said, please, thank you, sorry, and excuse me, because I wanted them to know they were worthy of being respected. I sat on the floor because I wanted to gain their trust. I hugged them because I wanted them to believe they were not dirty just because they lived in the slums and across the landfills. I visited their homes. I met with their parents. I even drank the water from their homes, which is not done in my world. I told them I loved them every day until they began to believe it. I told them that I believed in them and that I was proud of them. The way I expressed my love was so novel and a spectacle so rare that they would actually look at each other to ascertain, is she really doing that? Pouring self-belief and self-confidence into them was a game changer. The way they began to study changed. The kind of company they began to keep changed. And their scores started going higher. In time to come, many of them would go on to study in some of the city's best colleges. However, college life was not easy for my students. English is the most prominent language in colleges. It is rare to find good colleges in local languages. Intelligent, hardworking, capable students from non-English schools with great high school graduation scores were now sitting in the same classroom with private school students, where the textbooks were only in English. College professors taught only in English. Exam timetables were in English, college announcements in English, homework in English, verbal exams in English, written exams, say it with me now, in English. Making friends was not easy for my students either. Not only were they far behind in English, they dressed different than their peers, they looked different than their affluent peers, and they even smelled different. If classmates made a plan to go to a high-end coffee shop, they would not go. My students would not go because they knew they could not afford a 200 rupee cup of coffee. And on the off chance that they went, the security guards would not let them in because the guards could tell my students could not afford a 200 rupee cup of coffee. There were days they felt humiliated and lonely. They began skipping classes. They began becoming detached. Every night, my heart was not at rest. And I knew if my students were struggling with this, there had to be other students who were also struggling. And I believe when you pray, God leads the way. I found myself at an event where I saw how members of a youth club had groomed shy, underconfident private school students into leveled up versions of themselves. And I knew in that moment, this is what my students and others like them needed. We needed to take students who were just about to graduate high school from public schools and partner them with youth mentors from college who had graduated from private schools. I approached one of the youth organizers, pitched the idea. Together, we developed it further, and voila, we created one of India's first youth-for-youth peer-to-peer mentorship models based on the college level and not school level. We have a few simple rules in our sessions. To promote unity, everyone wears the same shirts. In a country where your last name determines how much respect you deserve, everyone wears a name tag with just their first names. We eat the same food and we eat together. We respect time and we encourage one another's dreams. These might seem like super simple things, but for children, it helps them break their belief systems. They become more humble and compassionate, and the results speak for themselves. Please meet Pratiksha. She graduated from a local language high school. It is frowned upon for a girl to get educated in her world. She had an alcoholic parent, her books were torn, and she was regularly beaten. But she went on to graduate from one of the city's top all-girls colleges with a bachelor's in information technology. Just this year, she graduated with her master's in cybersecurity. Today, she earns more than 3 times her family's monthly income. She has grown to serve as a mentor, lead youth teams, head one of our programs, and even to present at the United Nations NGO Commission on the Status of Women in 2021. Please meet Ioni. Ioni was Pratiksha's youth mentor. Ioni graduated from one of the city's most elite private schools. When I met Ioni, she told me she was only allowed to travel by car. She was always late and she wore the t-shirt we issued in a fashionable way. Today, however, I am flooded with images of a loving, humble and responsible young girl who not only hugged her kids, but made them believe in themselves and also taught her affluent peers to serve as youth champions. Ioni has gone on to mentor and inspire a countless number of youth. Nafisa, Bushra, Durgeshwari, Vaishnavi, Vrushali, Ajmer, Ayujish, Suvajit, Sejal all graduated from local language public schools. They have overcome homes with abuse, the death of parents, suicide of friends, days without food, no access to books, limited beliefs about women and men, early marriage, and yet they have persisted with their college education, graduating with degrees in arts, commerce, and science, becoming the first in their families to become not only college graduates, but earn better than their parents and provide the promise of a new generation that will not continue the cycle of poverty for generations to come. Keisha, Nimit, Nirali, Mohammed, Ananya, and Swara, who are on their ways to becoming successful entrepreneurs, movie directors, and heads of corporate social responsibility, have found purpose and meaning. They will raise a new generation, one that is aware, connected, and empathic. They will embrace working alongside anyone as an equal, regardless of where they have lived or studied. It is not my intention to blame anyone or anything. In fact, it is my firm belief that it is each of us who has contributed not only to creating the gap, but also widening it. So how can we step in together to bridge this gap? Each time we ensure that children get admission on merit, we bridge this gap. When we speak to those who work for us with respect and allow our children to witness it, we bridge this gap. Each time we allow our house help to take home leftover food, we bridge this gap. Each time we allow their children to study in our homes, use our Wi-Fi to complete their projects, we bridge this gap. When we don't terminate them from jobs because they arrived late, because the water in their area was released late, we bridge this gap. When we keep their working hours reasonable, give them at least 1 day off a week, and treat them as humanely as we would like to be treated, we bridge this gap. When we teach our children to share their privileges, we bridge this gap. If it is indeed each drop that makes the ocean, wouldn't it stand to reason that if each one of us just did one small little part, we could indeed bridge this gap together? Our country's students don't need sympathy. They need to be heard. They need to know they are believed in and supported. They need us to take on the responsibility and ownership in creating a world that offers them the opportunities to grow, compete effectively, live a life of dignity, and contribute to the growth and success of the nation they so deeply love. Thank you.